Thank you. This is Alan Joins, Mayor of Winston-Salem, and I call to order this special meeting of the Winston-Salem City Council here on May 6th, 2022. Let me just first of all thank members of our legislative delegation for joining us today. This meeting is being televised, and we are doing it remotely. All council members are participating virtually, as are our members of the delegation. For virtual meetings such as this, members will be muted until they are asked to be heard. If there is a vote, it'll be necessary to take a roll call vote. Council member will be recognized and raise her hand and state your vote. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Larson. Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Mundy. Councilmember Scipio. Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Here.
And Councilmember Burke.
Well, thank you very much. Again, let me just say how much we appreciate the close working relationship we have with our Winston-Salem Forsyth County delegation, and really to want to thank you for the tremendous amount of funding that you're able to bring to us this past year. Particularly grateful for the $10 million you're able to get us for our affordable housing initiatives. When you add that with our local monies that we've been able to set aside, and we've got around $30 million or a little more to work on affordable housing. Senator Krawick, do you want to introduce or have those in attendance to introduce themselves on the delegation side?
Sure. I'm Joyce Krawick. I represent District 31, which is part of Forsyth and all of Davie County currently. And I believe we have, I know we have Senator Lowe on, and I'm not sure who else. So the rest of the delegation, please introduce yourself.
Representative Jeff Paul Lowe, Senate District 32. My entire district is in Forsyth County. So even with the changes that are coming up. So it's good to see everyone.
Representative Evelyn Terry, District 71.
Representative Amber Baker, District 72, which encompasses a part of downtown, East Winston, and some of Stratford Road, Country Club Road, and some of Stratford. Thank you.
Great, well, wonderful. Again, thank you all for taking
Representative
time.
Zinger is I don't know if he's introduced.
Yeah, Jeff is on.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Representative
Zinger. Thanks.
Thank you
District 74.
74, great. Couldn't do it without District 74. So, again, we thank you for taking time out of your schedule this morning. We don't have a lot this time. You'll be happy to know we'll have 4 items that we'd like to discuss with you. One having to do with helping us with our affordable housing initiative, which is a critical issue for our city, really cities all across the country. There's another item that will hopefully help us with the high level of vacancy that we have in our police department by allowing us to use non-sworn officers to do some things like investigating non-injury traffic accidents and things of that nature. And then a little bit of clarification on how we can perhaps continue using some of these virtual meetings if need be. But again, it's our pleasure to work with you. Of course, you know very well Angela Carmen, our city attorney. You all work hand in hand during the session. And so I'm going to, without objection, turn this meeting over to Angela Carmen to let her walk us through those 4 items. Angela, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone, and I certainly look forward to working with each of you during this upcoming session. If you don't mind, I'm going to dive right into the legislative package. Hopefully each of you all have either the email, if not the email, the book, and Sandra's going to display the package on the screen. So hopefully everyone can see this.
Mrs. Carmen, yes. Can I ask a question? And Mayor, I'd like to ask a question before we get into this legislative agenda. And I'd like to bring up something that happened when we worked on our last legislative agenda. And it's about Senate Bill 145, which I and some of us worked on for 3 years. What is the status of that? We worked on it, it went through, and, you know, it was for affordable housing. And is there been any movement with the city on it? What is going on there? Because we really worked really hard on that. And, you know, when we work really hard and kind of put our necks out and use up a green stamps, we kind of want to know what's going on.
Mayor, I'd be happy to address Senator Lowe's question if you would like.
Okay. I do know, Senator, that had to do with the ability to be a little more flexible in selling city property, I believe is the nature of that.
Yes.
So.
To add to what the mayor has indicated, Senator Lowe, yes, we do thank the delegation wholeheartedly for all of the efforts and the heavy lifting it took to have that bill passed by the members of the General Assembly. And the city is working diligently and putting together the list of properties, city-owned properties, for which we hope to use. The city hopes to use that bill. It would allow the city to sell city-owned properties free of charge, without consideration, if it's necessary to make a development deal work. But we want to make sure we set forth parameters that will be beneficial not only to the city, but to the potential buyers of city property and developers of city property. So we appreciate your patience, but we're working diligently on developing and helping City Council develop a program by which to use that special legislation that was obtained during the last session. And I certainly will keep you posted.
Follow up. What is the timeline? Because I know it's been a year. So what is the actual timeline on which the municipality will function?
We hope to bring a package back to City Council, well, first of all, the General Government Committee in June, and hopefully City Council in August. We've got some properties, as you know, we initially started out with over 600 properties. We've sort of narrowed that list down to a little bit more than 200 plus based upon topography and so forth. But we want to make sure we come up with terms and conditions that will be acceptable to developers and potential buyers of property, but hopefully by August.
So another follow-up question. So none of these things were worked out and talked through with City Council? I mean, when we went forward with this, it was my understanding that City Council had pretty much worked through what you all wanted, and that was the reason why you wanted. And I don't mean to sound argumentative, but I do want to understand and get clarity.
Yes, there's been a draft of a couple of ordinances under consideration by the General Government Committee. And one of the, I think, considerations that we're still working on is in terms of the restrictive covenants, how long will the affordable housing restrictions apply to the property? Is it 15 years? Is it 30 years? You want to make sure it's for a long enough period of time so that it addresses the affordable housing crisis, but you don't want to make it too long such that it discourages the developer from potentially even buying the property. So it is a little delicate and a little tricky, and we're trying to work through some of those issues. And in communications with other municipalities who've actually tried different approaches to addressing affordable housing, some started out with 30 and reduced their affordability restrictions to 15 years. Some started out with a shorter period of time, realizing that that did not quite work. So they're revamping their program. So we're kind of taking the benefit of learning from what other municipalities have done in terms of trying to determine how long that affordability restriction should be in place. Again, you don't want to discourage developers from buying the properties, but you want to make sure it's long enough to address the affordable housing crisis. And again, we appreciate your patience, and I understand the questions, and we're working diligently to try to resolve those last few conditions that would be included as a part of any property that's sold. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Any additional questions, if any?
Yeah, just Senator, this is Alan. I just wanted to let you know that you may be aware there are one or two developers who have already submitted some preliminary requests to participate in this program. So I think it'll go very quickly once City Council gives final approval. And the reason it's looking to be August for the full council is that the City Council does not meet during the month of July. So that would push us over to August. But we'll move forward with that very, very quickly from this point forward, Senator. As we do appreciate your patience on that and really appreciate your hard work in getting this done for us.
Okay, well, one last statement. The only reason I'm asking is because, you know, it had been in the works so long. I thought that all of the, I know the devil's in the details, but I thought the City Council had worked through all of those details when you all put it on our agenda. You know, when you said this is your agenda, I thought these things had been worked through, and now I'm kind of finding out they had not been worked through at all. And that's why I was asking the question, but oh well.
Good question, Senator, and we're going to move forward quickly with it from this point forward. So.
One last statement, if I may, Mayor. I think please. The issue with the longevity of the restrictive covenants came up sort of on the tail end of the discussion about it, because I think we thought the 30 years had been pretty much agreed to, and then we received some comments, and they were fair comments about whether or not it should be 15 versus 30 years. But that was the last sticking point that sort of came up towards the end of the discussion. But we'll certainly be happy to try to move it along faster as much as we can.
Ms. Cameron, I have a follow-up question, or actually two. This is Representative Amber Baker. One of them has to do with defining what we mean as affordable housing. Will some of that be hammered out in the details as we move forward?
We have a pretty good definition of that, Representative. This is Alan joins again. Basically, affordable is defined as someone paying more than 30% of their net income, and you back into it by looking at our average median wage here in the county. And then 80% of that being a certain amount, 60%, 40%, and so on. And based on the percentages, it determines how much an individual can pay per month for rent and or house payment. So our objective is to provide housing for all of those income levels. But it's kind of a formula for each level as well as each housing situation.
Okay, thank you. And the other question is, it has to do with the length of time. And so if a developer or a purchaser of these homes, will there be a time limit established in which they will be expected to develop this property? I know we're talking about 15 to 30 years in terms of what we're looking at, but if a developer purchases this property, will there be some safeguards in there that will prevent them from sitting on the property until the affordable clause sunsets before they develop the property and can do it at full market rate?
I'll be happy to answer that question, Mayor.
Yes, please.
Yes, any agreement that we have with the developer will have a timeline by which the project has to be completed. So that would be a part of the contract, as well as the restricted covenant in terms of how long that developer must keep the affordability restrictions in place. But those things will be addressed in a development agreement with the developer.
Thank you.
And I appreciate all of this morning's
If
questions.
there's no
and the
other
opportunity.
questions, we'll,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
if there's no other questions, Angela, why don't you go ahead and go through this year's package?
Sure, Mayor, I'll be happy to. Okay, if we could, if you don't mind, turn to the first page in the agenda book. As you can tell, this page just sets forth the different bills and where they can be located in the package. And we'll go to tab number 1, please. Okay, this bill is the bill that the mayor alluded to earlier. This is a bill that would authorize city to waive system development fees for developers who are basically developing, building, and so forth, housing for low and moderate income persons. And I will mention that there are several municipalities that are actually doing this already. But I had a discussion with the School of Government about whether or not there's actual authority or clear authority for cities to waive the system development fees for affordable housing parcels. And based upon my conversation with the School of Government, it appeared that the authority was not as clear as we would like for it to be. And so to avoid any issues down the road, I thought perhaps it would be a good opportunity for cities to have clear authority to waive the system development fees to allow developers who are interested in building affordable housing for low and moderate income persons. Again, this would be an opportunity to entice developers to, in fact, build low and moderate income housing for low and moderate income persons. And we hope with the other bill that you all graciously shepherded through the General Assembly last year, that this will be another opportunity to entice builders to build low and moderate housing for low and moderate income persons. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about the bill itself. But again, I consider this to be a bill that is sort of clarifying what we think the authority is for cities as it relates to system development fees. And if we could just go through the bill, the next page, which displays the bill itself. And again, you'll see the underlined portion, which is adding the language to the current legislation to make it clear that cities can waive system development fees for those developers who are building affordable housing for low and moderate income persons. If we could go to the next tab, please, tab number 2. And this bill is sort of like the last bill. Again, looked at the current legislation, the current statutes, had discussion with my colleagues across the state and the School of Government. And the question is this: can municipalities assist private property owners in repairing private storm drainage problems? I think a number of my colleagues felt like the cities do have that authority, in particular if the private storm drainage system problem could potentially impact the public storm drainage system. So there was this thought that cities already have that authority. In fact, the city has a 70-30 program whereby the city would contribute to the repair of private storm drainage problems at 70%, which can exceed $35,000. And then the private property owner would pay the 30%. And we've had that program in place for years. So in 2014, Charlotte-Mecklenburg County introduced a bill in the General Assembly to get specific authority to address a storm drainage problem on private property. That bill only addressed counties and gave counties the clear authority to do that. And so when that bill passed and it only addressed counties, the question became, okay, do cities have that authority? Do we need to come back and get authority, clear authority from the General Assembly to be able to undertake storm drainage repairs on private property? So in talking with the School of Government, they basically indicated it probably would not be a bad idea to have a similar bill to that of the counties that would allow cities to undertake on private property storm drainage repairs. And this will basically allow the city to continue with this 70-30 program, which we put on hold for a while when this question of clear authority came up. And the bill is kind of long, but that's what follows this summary. And again, I'll be happy to answer any questions. I consider this more of a technical corrections type bill to make it clear that cities like counties can undertake these projects. And I'll be happy to answer any questions about this. But again,
I have a question.
Okay, sure.
And I have firsthand experience with this, and so I'm just asking. There are a number of places throughout the city where you have storm water systems that run across private property, but they're not necessarily the private property owner's system. I know of one case in particular, and Councilman McIntosh is familiar with it, where we had a pipe that ran through a piece of property, and that property literally put no water into it, and there was a huge sinkhole, and we repaired it and fixed it, everything, but it was all at the owner's expense, and it was a big mess. And so I don't know if this bill, I just see that, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I just see that as a future time bomb waiting to happen, because it seemed like at the time, and Jeff, you correct me if I'm wrong, it was just all very vague as to who was supposed to handle it. And fortunately, the owner that I helped out had the means to take care of it and did take care of it, but it was a 6-figure repair. So anyway, I just throw that out there. I don't know if that's addressed in this or not.
I appreciate the comments. It could, if it's residential, it could be based upon the 70-30 program, something that might be covered. Again, the 70-30 program is put on hold because of the lack of clear authority. But under that program, in particular, if the problem could potentially impact the public system, the city would pay 70%, not to exceed $35,000, and the property owner would pay 30%. So if it's residential property, there is a good chance that this would have been used for that particular situation, but I can't say specifically without having more facts. But certainly this would allow the city to resume its program with clear authority. I don't know if Councilman Megan.
Okay, can I comment on this?
Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. Jeff, was that you speaking? I can't tell who it was.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All I just see, I can't see any of y'all. Anyway, most of the pipes in the residential neighborhoods are privately owned. They were put in when a developer builds a neighborhood. You know, they put in the, well, you're a developer, you put in the streets and stormwater pipes, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, I got a guy that's got a 3-foot pipe in his backyard that's his. It's on his deed. It's listed right in there. And we put this program in. I certain degree initiated it. I called it a private pipe, but public water going through it. So that's why we have the 70-30 plan where the city pays 70%. But I've got pipes all over Buena Vista and Sherwood Forest that are privately owned, put in by the developers when they built these developments, but carry acres and acres of water that could drain through it that is not the owner of the pipes.
That's right.
But this program has been very, very useful in assisting these folks, and there is a sliding scale to it. If 70 is the minimum we pay, we will go up to 100%, depending. And the sliding scale is based on the price of the property compared to the average house in the city or something like that. But it is a big challenge. Winston-Salem is a lot hillier than people realize, and we have a lot of stormwater pipes that need fixing.
If I can comment here, this is Councilmember McIntosh.
Go ahead, Jeff.
The last time we saw a list of most impacted flood areas in the city, 7 out of 10 were in the Northwest Ward. And of those, almost all of them were in areas that were developed prior to them being in the city of Winston-Salem, and the areas that were annexed. And all of them were in areas that were developed prior to us having any stormwater standards for development. So we're faced with a situation of going back and fixing, sins of the past that are now very expensive to do. So, 70-30 on the residential side doesn't cover the commercial side, but on the residential side, it does sort of allow the city to participate in something that, frankly, isn't our fault, but we do understand that it's something that most homeowners can't do by themselves.
Thank you, Jeff. Good point.
Mayor, I believe Representative Terry has the question.
Go ahead, Representative Terry.
My question relates to city property that may be available for development now, and how some provisions for these eras of the past could be factored into that for the persons who may become the prospective homeowners. Do I make sense?
Yeah, if there's stormwater issues with some of these lots we're proposing to sell, is that the question?
That's basically what I am saying. Some of these, they are substandard lots. Much of the property that the city has been able to access, especially as it relates to the eastern part of the city, they were substandard. The lots are substandard, and I know the developer's responsibility will be to bring them up to standard, to make them standard lots. So what's underneath the ground, we don't know, right?
Right.
So and a cost is definitely going to be associated with that if it's affordable or not affordable housing. So I'm just asking the question regarding for the future, whose burden would that be to bear in terms of costs for remediating substandard lots that have problems with pipes underneath that need some infrastructure changes?
Yeah, I think that's part of the issue, is that we've been trying to work through all those lots to see which ones are buildable and which ones maybe have problems. But I would think that if we did have a lot that someone wanted to acquire and build affordable housing, we've got the ability to basically donate that building, that lot with certain conditions. But we could also apply this, the 70-30 rule, to this as well, if it meets other criteria. So I think we're prepared to work with the developers, Representative Terry.
Well, and the reason I ask it, I've also borne the burden of the finance of the the 70-30 was fair. I say that, but it was expensive for me.
Yes, ma'am.
You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So just make sure somebody accounts for that kind of, those are what I call hidden costs.
Yeah, duly noted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may, I'll also add, we did in fact look at each of the lots, and that's part of the reason why we started out with 600 some lots and we're now down to 200, because we looked at topography and whether or not they were truly buildable lots. And I understand there are things in the ground you may not know, but this will be an opportunity for us to use this legislation on those properties as well.
Great. Thank you.
I believe Councilmember Larson may have a question, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilmember Larson. Do you have a question or comment?
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of these stormwater drains go across private properties that the homeowners don't even know they're there because they were installed so long ago and the ownership is transferred and what have you. As we begin to transfer these back into the private sector, I mean, obviously they're going to be surveyed again and legal documents prepared describing the property. And it may be one thing we want to look at is some statement as to whether there's known any stormwater drains passing through the property. It wouldn't take much to make an assessment of that issue. to at least eliminate the possibility of somebody being surprised one morning waking up and having a collapsed stormwater drain in the front yard. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember. For no other questions or comments, we could go on tab 3, I believe.
Thank you, Mayor. And the mayor alluded to this particular legislation during his introductory remarks. This is, again, legislation that pertains to virtual or remote meetings. There have been instances, well, first of all, as you all know, with the pandemic, the General Assembly did enact legislation that authorizes municipalities to meet remotely or virtually during the pandemic, during the state of emergency. Otherwise, outside of the state of emergency, there is not really clear authority as to whether elected bodies can, in fact, continue with virtual or remote meetings. And I realize there's concern about elected bodies meeting remotely, in particular since the members of the General Assembly do meet in person. But there have been in the past opportunities where council could have potentially used this legislation and met remotely. For example, when we've had bad weather and because we were not able to necessarily get out, in particular in December or January, a regular meeting was canceled. Had this legislation been in place, then council could have turned that regular in-person meeting into a virtual meeting and continued on with the city's business. Again, this is to give the elected body clear authority to have remote meetings under those circumstances. And there's no desire to abuse or misuse this legislation, but allow the city to carry on with its business when there are opportunities where the body as a whole may not be able to meet in person. And I will also point out that much of many of the provisions in this legislation are currently in the legislation that allow for remote meetings during the pandemic or during a state of emergency that relate to notice, as well as the opportunity for citizens to be able to participate remotely, which, by the way, I think just in terms of the pandemic and citizens participating remotely, I believe the city has experienced an increase in participation because citizens are able to log on to the meeting and participate that way from work or wherever they may be. But again, this is to give the elected bodies clear authority to continue with remote meetings under special circumstances, like when the weather is bad and so forth. And so I'll be happy to answer any questions about this legislation.
Attorney Carmen, Mayor, may I speak, please?
Go ahead,
Sure.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Again, good morning, delegation. Thank you for joining us this morning. We appreciate your work. Attorney Carmen and delegation, I am a member of the Transportation Advisory Committee, which includes representatives from all over the county: Bethania, Tobaccoville, Walkertown, Kernersville, Clemens, Louisville, you name it. They're part of this body, this governing body. And what we found meeting virtually is that we have almost 100% committee member participation since this bill was enacted to allow us to meet virtually. What we've seen and heard from the membership is that they would like to continue, or we continue to meet virtually because, one, every time we meet, which is about every month, these members have to get in their car and they have to drive from the points furthest in the county to downtown Winston-Salem and participate, whether it's bad weather, raining, or whatever. Again, we've also found the citizens, when they want to do the public comment part, they are there. We've seen participation go up. So my question is, would this bill allow governmental committees to meet virtually and to be able to carry on the business without stress of high price of gas and all of that other things that happen, being able to participate as a body? Thank you.
Mayor, certainly this bill will give clear authority to the appointed boards as well as the elected body to do what Mayor Pro Tem Adams has just described, if it's enacted. Are there any more questions regarding or comments regarding the remote participation bill?
Attorney Carmen, Councilmember Mundy.
Councilmember Mundy.
Thank you. Just to add to Mayor Pro Tem's comments, and I'm just thinking how much we are worried about climate change and reducing carbon footprint and reducing the use of cars, which is going to more pollution and so forth. So that's just one more reason why, if we don't have to get into our car, create some more pollution, create some more carbon in the air, I think that's a good reason to be able to meet remotely on top of some of the others.
Thank you, Councilmember Mundy. Other questions or comments? If not, we can move on to tab 4.
Thank you, Mayor. Tab 4. I believe everyone received this morning an email from me. Hopefully you received it. With a letter from the police chief, Chief Katrina Thompson, supporting this legislation. This particular legislation would authorize cities basically to use civilian personnel to respond to and investigate traffic crashes and issue citations rather than have the police officers do that. As the letter is indicated, Winston-Salem, like many other cities, has a shortage in law enforcement at this point in time and has to be intentional about deploying law enforcement given the vacancies. And so this would allow law enforcement to be deployed for other activities and delegate to civilian, properly trained, of course, the opportunity to investigate traffic crashes and handle those matters while law enforcement are basically dedicated to other matters. Again, you have in your package, or at least your email, a letter of support from Police Chief Katrina Thompson. And this is also a bill that the city of Greensboro is also seeking as well. Currently, the city of Wilmington and I believe Fayetteville have this legislation, and all reports from both Wilmington and Fayetteville have been positive. They've used civilian personnel to do these investigations. They've been properly trained and seem to be handling them well. I think they've had anywhere from 5 to 10 employees to handle these types of investigations. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. If the police chief is here, Mayor, I'm sure she would like to comment if she's here. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think that's good. Chief Thompson, I think, please.
I think this is an excellent thing, and I certainly like what I'm reading. I don't know how it would be vetted when it came through our chambers and at the General Assembly level, but I think it's a good thing, and I certainly would support something of this kind. So.
Thank you, Senator Lowe.
May
Chief Thompson, do you want to comment? Yes. Yes, please, go ahead.
Oh, I was simply saying that I think it's an excellent idea as well. And it mirrors in many ways what we once referred to as kind of community policing. I think it's a hybrid of that. And for many reasons, I think it would be helpful if we could do it. Thanks to the chief for bringing it to our attention. Yes.
Yeah.
My apologies, Mayor. Chief Thompson was not able to join us. I apologize.
Oh, okay. But I was thinking, legislative delegation, I think our vacancy number in the police department may be 80 or more. Is Assistant City Manager Tony on here?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here.
Does that sound about right?
Yes, we have 528 authorized positions. Currently, we have about 115 vacancies. These are police officer vacancies.
Oh, 115. Wow. Yeah. more than I thought.
Yep.
So you can see the dire straits we're in, folks. We're trying to figure out every way we can to provide good police protection, but this will give us another tool. Ms. Tony, would you like to add anything else?
No, other than, yes, I support this potential legislation. I do think it'll be fantastic to just take some weight off of our police officers who are understaffed, and our crime rates are increasing. And so if they can focus on responding to crime and allow civilians to handle these non-violent or non-criminal type of reports necessary for traffic violations, I think this would be excellent.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Tony. Ms. Carmen?
Mayor, that's everything in the 2022 legislative agenda package.
That's all we got there.
I thank the delegation for joining us this morning, and I'll be happy to answer any questions regarding any of the items in the package and anything else.
All right. To the delegation, certainly we're available anytime you might need any of us to come down, testify before a committee or otherwise. And if you have other questions after this, certainly Ms. Carmen is a great resource, or all of us are. And we again thank you for the collaboration that we have with the delegation. Any other comments, delegation or council members?
Well, we appreciate you all as well.
And I'd like to say thank you for this time of sharing, and we appreciate the work that you do in the municipality of Winston-Salem. We thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Gotta go.
Same here. Council members, got to get a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
I know nobody's opposed. So, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Happy
you.
Mother's Day.